Yeah.
He escaped from Germany because he knew that the Nazis were trying to take all the scientists and either kill them or use them for Nazi purposes.
Okay, so he does escape Germany. He originally lived there when the Nazis started to take control. He didn't escape because he was a scientist. Does anybody know why he escaped?
He's a physicist.
No?
He's German. I'm
He's,
not German.
he's Jewish.
Jewish, that's what I meant to say.
Albert Einstein was Jewish.
He was a Jew?
Yes.
So, alright, so he's Jewish. Because of that, he knew that this was not a place for him to be. Alright? And he escapes to the United States before Hitler was able to, hurt his family. Yes.
How did he escape?
He left the country.
No, I didn't. But how did he actually escape?
So he was able, he moved from Germany to Belgium, okay, and then before Belgium was taken over by the Germans, he left for America. So he was able to leave before, like when Hitler first gained power, he couldn't just start, going through with the Holocaust or, rounding up all the Jewish people and putting them in ghettos and then later into concentration camps. Remember, he was brainwashing the German population for a few years before they would buy into an extreme thought like that. So during that period of time, he was able to leave. All right, what I want everyone to do is look at the last page. Okay, when Einstein gets back to America, he's going to write FDR a letter. And that's on the last page of your note
Wait,
sheet.
where, sir?
On the last page. Alright, I'm going to read it out loud, but I want you guys just to follow along with me reading, okay? So since I'm reading it, I would appreciate it if all you do is follow along. It says, Sir, some recent work by E. Fermi and L. Szilard, which has been communicated to me in manuscript, leads me to expect that the element uranium may be turned into a new and important source of energy in the immediate future. Certain aspects of the situation which has arisen to seem to call for watchfulness and, if necessary, quick action on the part of administration. I believe, therefore, that it is my duty to bring to your attention the following facts and recommendations. So based off this, we can tell that this letter is, one, he wants to tell FDR something he does not already know, and two, he wants to make recommendations for what he should do policy-wise. In the course of the last 4 months, it has been made probable through the work of Joliet in France as well as Fermi and Szilard in America, that it may become possible to set up a nuclear reaction in a large mass of uranium, by which vast amounts of power and large quantities of new radium-like elements would be generated. Now it appears almost certain that this could be achieved in the immediate future. The new phenomenon would also lead to the construction of bombs, and it is conceivable, though much less certain, that extremely powerful bombs of a new type may be constructed. A single bomb of this type, carried by boat and exploded in a port, might very well destroy the whole port together with some of the surrounding territory. However, such bombs might very well prove to be too heavy for transportation by air. The United States has only this part's illegible. It says the United States has only very poor illegible of uranium in moderate quantities. This was a handwritten letter and it's switched over to typed out letters. There is some good ore in Canada and the former Czechoslovakia, while the most important source of uranium is in Belgian Congo. So I just want to pause here for a second. What year does it say that this letter was written in? 1939. Which of those countries from that last sentence was just taken over by Germany the year before? Czechoslovakia, right? Why do you no? This is Congo. That's in Africa. Why do you think he wanted to take Czechoslovakia based off what Einstein's saying? What was there? Uranium, right? In view of this situation, you may think it desirable to have some permanent contact maintained between the administration and the group of physicists working on chain reactions in America. One possible way of achieving this might be for you to entrust with this task a person who has your confidence and who could perhaps serve in an unofficial capacity. His task might comprise the following. A. To approach government departments, keep them informed of the further development and forward recommendations for government action, giving particular attention to the problem of uranium ore for the United States. B, to speed up the experimental work, which is at present being carried on within the limits of the budgets of university laboratories, by providing funds, if such funds be required, through his contacts and with private persons who are willing to make contribution for this cause. And perhaps also by obtaining the cooperation of industrial laboratories which have the necessary equipment. I understand that Germany has actually stopped the sale of uranium from Czechoslovakian mines, which she has taken over. That she should have taken such early action might perhaps be understood on the ground that the son of the German Undersecretary of State von Wischlicker is attached to the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute in Berlin, where some of the American work on uranium is now being repeated. Yours very truly, Albert Einstein. So let's go over, there's two sections of this, or two questions from this letter that you have a box to fill out in on your note sheet. The first question is, what is Albert Einstein informing us of?
That,
Go ahead, Skylar.
That, like where Germany is going to try and take over next.
Okay, so are you saying that with Czechoslovakia?
Yeah.
So he actually had already taken it over by the time this letter was written. But going off that, what would he use that uranium he got from Czechoslovakia for? To develop nuclear weapons. Very good. So that means that they are in the process of trying to build atomic bombs themselves in Nazi Germany. What was his recommendation that FDR should do now? Yeah.
Build one and like make sure that they're doing their task always so that they can beat the Germans.
Yeah, he basically says, you guys as the American government need to develop your own before the Nazis do. Okay, is what he's saying. Now this is interesting because Albert Einstein is a pacifist. What does that mean if you're a pacifist? Anybody
You
know?
don't like fun.
Yeah.
Don't believe in war.
You don't believe in fighting a war. All right, but he knew that it was a necessary evil, so to speak. If we didn't develop it, then the Nazis eventually would get that technology. And think about it, it's 1939, okay? They've already taken over large chunks of Europe. If they could threaten people with the use of nuclear weapons, right? Imagine if, Hitler was in power, they had nukes, they reached out to FDR at this time and said, listen, if you don't become part of the Nazi Reich, we will drop bombs on New York City, on LA, on Chicago, on Washington, D.C. You would almost have to surrender because you have no way of stopping that. You know what I'm saying? If they have nuclear weapons and you don't. So it's kind of this idea that we need to beat them to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right.
Wait,
Yes.
so they've been mining uranium before this. What would they be using it for?
Just different research in chemistry. They were trying to use it as an energy source originally. It hadn't been developed yet, but this was still in like the theory processes. All right. So anyways, they're going to start, FDR is going to agree with what Albert Einstein says, and he's going to start something called the Manhattan Project. Okay? The Manhattan Project was developed out of fear of a German creation of atomic bombs. That's why they started it. Right? Their goal was to develop nuclear weapons themselves. And if it wasn't for Albert Einstein encouraging the Manhattan Project, it probably would never have happened. This project was located out in a remote part of New Mexico called Los Alamos. Does anybody have any guesses why they would want to put it somewhere in kind of in the middle of nowhere? Casey?
So that something goes wrong, like nobody gets hurt.
Okay, good. So one of the things is, let's say they were doing a test. They wouldn't want anyone to get hurt. Good. What else? Justin?
So, like, if they're testing the bombs, like, nobody really sees it.
Okay.
So they don't see the massive mushroom cloud.
Okay, nobody really sees it, Earl?
Like prevent spies or
Good. It would deter spies. Basically, it's a lot easier to keep it a secret if you're in the middle of nowhere. They don't want anybody knowing about this project. All right, so it's going to be headed by a scientist whose name is Oppenheimer, and it'll be worked on by several scientists, and actually thousands of people were hired. 125,000 military and civilian people, all together were going to Los Alamos to work on this project. There was funding from many different universities, and this was really huge science innovation that was being worked on by the industry's best. Right? Because they knew if they couldn't beat the Germans to this, it could be a nightmare. Alright, so I just want to show you guys some pictures of some of the signs that they had outside of Los Alamos.
You don't have to write anything down like this. Or...
No, but I want you to look at the pictures on the screen. Alright. Alright, so here's the first one. This would be right outside of Los Alamos, like when you're entering in to the military base. This would be one of the signs you see. It says, what you see here, what you do here, what you hear here, when you leave here, let it stay here. Okay, like I said before, it's supposed to be a big secret. Here's another one. Hold your tongue, the job's not done. Silence means security, okay? Why would silence mean security? Who don't you want finding out about this?
Nazis.
Yeah, because if the Nazis know that you're also trying to develop this, it will create pressure on them to work faster as well. Do you think that they wanted to tell the American public either? No, why not?
Because they might oppose it.
People could oppose it, and also, once again, could spread to our enemies, right? Good. Here's another one. Loose talk helps our enemies, so let's keep our trap shut. And then this last one is like the, see no evil, hear no evil, say no evil. Play on that with the three monkeys in the background. And then saying the same message that we saw before. Do you guys think it stays secret?
No.
Probably not.
No?
Yes.
It doesn't.
All you're saying is
All right, so you don't need to write this, but there was actually a lot of undercover scientists that were actually from the Soviet Union who worked on the project. And part of the problem was that there was actually a decently sized communist political party in the United States at the time. I mean, not big enough to get people in office, but there were believers of communism, and they were actually working on some of them were working on the Manhattan Project, and were giving the Soviet Union and Joseph Stalin daily updates on what was going on, where the only people who knew in the United States was the president and the person working at Los Alamos. Yeah.
So where did we put the first one? Where did we put this?
Hey, is this all part of the first one?
I just said at the beginning you don't need to write this. Yeah. Okay.
Did we put this on the timeline?
I did.
You don't write it
What
down.
did I just-
Not that, but the one before that.
No, the one before that was the one labeled "What is the Manhattan Project?"
Oh, it was?
Yeah, it was titled Manhattan Project. All right. So, anyways, it does get leaked, and our vice president didn't even know that the Manhattan Project was going on, but Joseph Stalin knew all about it. So it's kind of an interesting thing. All right. So now we're going to move on to the timeline. It's 1944. So this is when the project really starts to heat up and gain weight. So this is 5 years after the warning letter came from Einstein. So when we think about where we're at battles, does anybody remember from the assignment you did on Friday, what was the most recent battle that you had on there? Anybody remember?
What was our- what was
Battle
our
of Lady?
It was the Battle of Yuzano. Okinawa, good. Alright, so Okinawa, if you guys look at the map, is an island right here. Okay, pretty close to Japan. Alright, so the Americans had freed all of the other areas that were controlled by the Japanese, and were now marching on Japan's door. They're trying to figure out how should we actually finish fighting Japan. If they did a full-scale invasion, it was estimated that they could lose close to 1 million soldiers. So they knew that that would be a risky decision. Alright, so they start to figure out, well, maybe we could use this new technology that we're developing in this battle. So what did Einstein say in his letter about the weight of these bombs? Yeah.
It might be
Plane
too
can
heavy
carry
to carry by airplanes, so they should put it by ship.
Yeah, so he said that they're going to be so heavy that it might not even be possible to transport them. He thought you'd have to do it by ship. Alright, so what the Americans started to do